Hey everyone, I'm Aaron. You can call me Lost. That's my identical twin brother, Adam. He apparently is found. Every time I think of Lost and Found, I think of Brooks and Dunn. I mean, Lost and Found in a border town. Neither one of us are in a border town right now. But you folks are in the midst of a baseball Brewhaha, which means we're having a cup of coffee and we are in the midst of a daily baseball trivia fracas. Adam, you got brand new trivia on tap for us today. What do we got?
We're lost and found today because we're talking about teams relocating. They cannot be found in their usual place, and they were lost, and then they were found in their other place. So, of the four most recent teams to relocate, which had the best record in their first year following their move? And this is inspired by the sad story of the A's, who have entered into an agreement for land in Las Vegas to build a park and move there. So, a storied franchise with a great history, but also a history of relocating.
Yep.
And so we're diving into teams that have relocated right here with our trivia question, which happens to include the A's of a different year. So, who had the best record in the year after relocating? The 68 A's, 70 Brewers, 72 Rangers, or the 2005 Nationals?
So I was thinking the A's. I went with the A's here. This was the Reggie Jackson era of the A's. They had some good teams. This was just before they went gangbusters in the early '70s, but I think they were building toward that. So I went A's here.
And I went A's on this one as well, thinking, like you were saying, right before they went gangbusters in the early '70s. I love that term, gangbusters. And thinking that, oftentimes teams are building up to a run like that. They don't just pop on the scene most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I went A's here. So let's see what we got. And congratulations, Lost. We are lost and found, mostly found here because we got this one right. Yeah. The 1968 A's, they were not gangbusters that year, though. They finished just a touch over 500 at 82 and 80. The Nationals 81 and 81 were a close second.
Snuck it in there. Yeah, snuck it in there. So, yeah. So, but neither one of those, the A's, these were just the most recent four to relocate.
Yeah.
They were not the best ever. So, who was that?
The best ever was the 1953 Milwaukee Braves, who moved from Boston. They finished 92, 62, and 3. That 3 is something that I'm curious about. Maybe a theme for another show. That many ties in a season is interesting.
Well, I was going to say, the more I've looked back at old-time records, there are a lot of ties.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm less shocked, but it is puzzling. Did we run out of daylight? Did we, the tarp get frozen to the field? What happened here?
Yeah. So the Braves, they were a founding member of the NL in 1871 as the Red Stockings. And then in 1912 changed to the Braves, the Boston Braves, and then moved to Milwaukee in 1953.
So, lest we all get confused, Boston has the current Boston Red Sox. They were an AL team founded in 1901. So that's the Boston team that exists today. The Boston Braves moved to Milwaukee in 1953. That was largely just due to the fact that the Red Sox were better, won more World Series, had more fans, and the competition really led to low revenue and pushed in Milwaukee. They had a lot of success there. Milwaukee has had actually quite a history of good success with having franchises there. So we're going to see this isn't the only time Milwaukee has had a franchise relocate to their locale.
Yeah, the Brewers, we're going to touch on them a little bit later as well. So now we're talking about teams who were the worst ever. They were lost. They were found in the new city, but they found themselves feeling lost because they lost a lot of games. So we have a tie for the worst ever after relocating. That's the 1954 Orioles and the 72 Rangers, both at 54 and 100.
Yeah, eclipsing that 100 loss mark. So the Rangers broke the tie, however, with with their futility of hitting. And when I was looking at it, so they scored 461 runs and allowed 628, so quite a run differential in the negative. Team batting average of 217, and nobody on the team hit over 260. It was rough, and they were just in the bottom of every major offensive statistical category as a team. So rough go.
Yeah, well, and we're on now to the Seattle Pilots, perhaps one of the wildest, weirdest, wackiest, saddest story of relocation ever. So the Seattle Pilots started in 1969. Right here in Seattle. It didn't go well, not only on the field, but in many other ways. So they were 64-98 in their only season as the Seattle Pilots. They played in a stadium called the Six Stadium, SICK apostrophe S, a harbinger of things to come, as I think the building itself was sick. Crowds above 8,000. Not we're in like Oakland,
like a minor league game.
Yeah. The building had almost no water pressure, not enough seats for people, and low attendance and a bad team, makes a bad combo.
So this was wacky. There's some good books and stories out there about this, but the team went bankrupt on April 1st, 1970, 6 days before opening day. So the team's equipment was parked in Utah, trying to figure out, are we going to Seattle or are we going to Milwaukee? Because that was the rumor, is that if it failed in Seattle, we're going to Milwaukee. Bud Selig took the team after they went bankrupt to Milwaukee. There wasn't enough time to change the color scheme and get new uniforms and all that kind of thing. So the only thing they had enough time for was to change the name on the jersey, which is why the Brewers were for many years the exact same colors as the Mariners, because they just use the same color scheme. Now the Brewers, the blue and the gold are a little bit different color, but that's what the Brewers were originally going to be, blue and red, but they didn't have enough time to add the red. So
that's an amazing story that I did not know. And speaking of amazing stories, we're driving right into story time here. We're bringing the funk on the story because these are some funky relocation stories. For story time today, I'm talking about the Montreal Expos, who went on to move to Washington, D.C. to become the Nationals in 2005. And I am reminded of the 1994 strike-shortened season. They were one of, if not the best team in baseball that year, with an incredible team, power, speed, youth, pitching, and they were cruising. And then the strike shut it down, and then they never got their groove back and just kind of, putzed along until they moved on to Washington, D.C., and it just felt like a disappointment. I remember that in my childhood and watching that and experiencing that and feeling bummed for those guys.
Yeah, and every time I see Expos uniforms, it's just sadness, because they had a great color scheme. It was beautiful.
Yeah, and that Expos logo too, that ELB, yeah,
it was sick. So yeah, absolutely. I'm going a little different direction here. A team that didn't relocate but was on the verge actually was our Seattle Mariners. 1995, so the year after the strike, there was a lot of discussion about whether we can raise enough funds to build a stadium, and a new stadium, which became Safeco Field, which is now T-Mobile Park. And the Mariners had never made the playoffs since 1977, and there was talk of them moving to Tampa, which obviously Tampa Bay Rays, 1998 had an expansion team there. But the Mariners were out of playoff contention for most of the year. And in August 1, they were 13 games out of first place, and they made a huge comeback, tied the Angels, then had a had a 1-game playoff, which they won at home, and then beat the Yankees, coming back after being down 0-2, sweeping them at home, and going into the ALCS, where they lost the Indians, who went on to win the World. No, the Braves beat them in '95 for their first World Series in quite some time. But the Mariners, really, they were set. The vote was happening as the Mariners were making this push to the playoffs, and essentially making the playoffs sort of put them over the top of where the city of Seattle voted and said, yes, we'll build a new stadium, and the Mariners stayed, and it's been huge. They've had some bad years. Let's be fair, but it's been great, and now seeing them successful again, the community is getting behind the Mariners. It's momentum. So we're thankful for a relocation that didn't happen. I was thinking about this. We're just talking about expos and all this stuff. The '90s were full of all kinds of crazies. You had Marlins, Rockies. Expos didn't move until early 2000s, but there was always some discussion. Mariners, and then you had Rays and Diamondbacks in '98. It was a crazy time in the '90s. It's like the Wild West, making up new teams all over the place.
Yeah, and also I remember from '94 too. Matt Williams was chasing down Roger Maris and got cut short, and all the what ifs from that year.
Well, and Tony Gwynn had a huge what if. He was
the 400 season.
He was hitting like 450 after the All-Star break, and he still had some work to do. But I think he finished 394. But he was hitting over 450 after the All-Star break. There was a lot of speculation he would have got there, but that's going to do it for us today. A special thanks today to StatHead, Baseball Reference, and the 3-0 Take, giving us some great data here to talk about today. It's been a fun one, everybody. Please comment below if you got a burning question, or find us on Twitter and tweet at us there. Subscribe, like, come hang out with us every day. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.